The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the show. If you're looking for a quick, easy way to support The David Pakman Show, go to donateyouraccount.com/David Pakman Show, and you can actually loan us your Twitter account just once a day or once a week, whatever you want, and we can actually send tweets out about the show. Donateyouraccount.com/David Pakman Show. I've been following this story now for several months, and it just seems like a good time to discuss it, given that Barack Obama has launched his re-election campaign. We're seeing more and more Republican candidates. We're making comparisons, so on and so forth. And there is much reporting that suggests Barack Obama, while publicly saying he supported a public option during the healthcare reform debate, that he was actually behind the scenes making a deal that would guarantee there would really be no public option in the eventual healthcare reform bill. And there's a lot of reporting about this. I don't even know where to start, but you know what? At face value, it just doesn't really even seem that surprising to me, given how weakly I feel Barack Obama, quote, supported the public option during that debate.
Right, and I guess part of the reason why he was able to do anything at all was this deal.
Right.
Which could be.
The argument could be made nothing would have even happened if he hadn't privately agreed to that. So Miles Mogilescu from the Huffington Post has been reporting on this. David Kirkpatrick originally reported in the New York Times that the White House had made a deal with the for-profit hospital lobby that he would make sure there was no national public option in the final healthcare reform legislation. Then David Kirkpatrick from the New York Times said the White House is completely standing behind the deal with for-profit hospitals. Not to worry, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Jim Messina, told the hospital lobbyists, according to this article. According to White House officials and lobbyists briefed on the call, the White House was standing behind the deal. So this is a big deal, and it's not really being reported on. No surprise. And it's a big deal because this was, even though Barack Obama was saying publicly he thought a public option was a good idea, he was encouraging supporters to believe that his health care plan would include a public option. He had promised for-profit hospital lobbyists there will be no public option. And I don't know if the explanation was, I'm just saying this to get support, or whatever the explanation was to the lobbyists, but that it was understood that it would not be there. Now, why aren't we hearing more reports about this?
Good question. I have no idea.
On the one hand, we have to assume that some networks are probably worried that it is going to be, there is no upside to reporting on this. In other words, it's done. What's done is done. There's really no way to control or influence what goes on behind the scenes with these lobbyists, and that there's just no positive to reporting on it. Now, of course, that's a very mainstream corporate media way to think about things. And more deeply, there are real questions here about the extent to which Obama, with the help of Rahm Emanuel, used typical, K Street strategy to pursue healthcare reform. I mean, the strategy seems to have been make backroom deals to protect the interests of the drug companies and the for-profit hospital industry, maybe in exchange for campaign cash, even if it means going back on a campaign promise to include a public option and to put pressure on private insurers to actually reduce the price of premiums, allow Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices, let Americans buy drugs from Canada. And the result, Lewis, is actually a bill that is not that popular with voters. Questions need to be asked here. We have the numbers, and we'll actually get to it a little bit later, but the healthcare situation is one where if you ask people whether they believe there should be national health care, phrase it a number of different ways, about 2/3 of Americans think that the answer is yes. And when you ask people how happy they are with this healthcare reform bill, it's significantly lower than that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it is significantly lower. So what do you think? I mean, it only makes sense if we are getting a deal that is not that popular. It certainly doesn't represent the will of the people. I just always assume there's backroom deals.
Right. Well, initially, we talked about how weak the Obamacare was, and we just assumed that because of all the opposition, this was all he could pull off. But clearly,
we're now getting evidence that may not be the case.
Right. It wasn't just opposition. There's something else going on here.
And again, I am not arguing that it is bad that more people are able to get health care coverage as a result of the bill that did pass. But what I'm arguing is that, number one, it more fully locks us into the for-profit system that is broken because it's putting more people into it. It is more locking in the power of the lobbyists and for-profit healthcare individuals and organizations. This, in the long term, I don't know that it's really going to be looked back upon as a step in the right direction overall. In other words, I don't know that it'll actually get us closer to where I think we need to be and where polls show most Americans think we need to be going.
Right. And why did he talk about a public option in the first place?
Well, no, that's obvious.
If it clearly was never on the table. I mean, I think it's a good thing that he did.
The idea was to get support from people who believe, hey, if a public option is possible, Obama will get it. And if it doesn't happen, then it's not Obama's fault. We support him anyway. When the reality may have been he never really wanted the public option. So I will put it out to our audience. DavidPakman.com, the new poll. Do you believe reports that Barack Obama made a backroom deal to ensure no public option passes? We'll have results for you soon. So make sure to get on DavidPakman.com and vote.